Welcome to Group 2's presentation. In this presentation, we will discuss the importance of communication, explore communication and conflict theories, as well as examine some empirical evidence and analyze two case studies.
Communication skills are important in every organization since it forms the basis of functioning of any organization. Since employers will be needed to write reports, proposals, and interact with other colleagues, it is highly essential that they have effective communication skills to avoid culturally discriminating language.
DeFleur has made this model by inserting mass media device and feedback device in the usual chain of communication, which consists of source, transmitter, channel, receiver, and destination. The diagram below suggests that audiences' motives for media affect not only the type of media and content which are selected, but also why and how a medium is used and content is interpreted. This calls for a mass medium device. Feedback device further ensures that receiver has interpreted the message correctly and that its understanding has been enhanced.
The Fisher's model of small group communication consists of four developmental stages. The first, which is the orientation, is when the group members get to know each other. The conflict stage is when the diversifying views of members lead to a functional conflict. Third is the emergent stage, wherein group tries to react to one another's viewpoints and reach to a conclusion. And final, the reinforcement stage, is when the group tries to observe their final decision through an array of others' viewpoints and confirm the decision that they have taken earlier. Our main theory is the Fisher's model of small group. Fisher's advantage of a DeFleur model is that the DeFleur model is a basic model of communication which only enhances the communication chain by adding the mass medium and the feedback device. Fisher's model, on the other hand, explains how the communication model of DeFleur can be applied in the real-world scenarios, typically the workplace.
Research on conflict theories. There are a large number of theories to explain the phenomenon of conflict among people. For example, realistic group conflict theory. It reveals that hostility between groups is based on revealed and perceived conflict goals, since they generate inter-group competition. Furthermore, theory psychoanalytic has the advantage of focusing on dynamic interactions between the identity, ego, and superego. Psychodynamics henceforth use human innateness of emotion force to explain and interpret their behavior or mental status. However, I think social identity theories is the best theory to predict and explain certain intergroup behaviors on the basis of four different aspects. Perceived group status differences, the perceived legitimacy and stability of those status differences, and the perceived ability to move from one group to another. The main idea of social identity theory is that in order to enhance one's self-image, group members of an in-group will seek to find negative aspects of an out-group.
Social identity theory, empirical evidence. A study was done to examine the effects of work externalization through the lens of social identity theory. Three hypotheses are developed based on the social identity theory. The first one is that work status dissimilarity will negatively influence employees' organization-based self-esteem, their trust and attraction toward their peers, and their altruism. The second one is that these effects are likely to affect more negatively on internal workers, especially when they work in temporary worker-dominated groups, which is the third hypothesis. Two organizations participated in the study. The response rate to the survey was 90%, in which 326 employees from 34 work groups completed usable surveys. The respondents included different workers, with temporary and internal workers being evenly distributed throughout the job categories. Results indicate that work status dissimilarity has a negative impact only on outcomes related to internal workers working in temporary worker-dominated groups. Therefore, the data failed to support hypotheses 1 and 2 and failed to uphold the anticipated outcomes of work externalization based on social identity theory. This may be mainly due to the dependence on self-reports of behavior and attitudes, and also the fact that the study is restricted to a single industry, which leads to concerns regarding the generalizability of the results.
Empirical evidence on Fisher's model of communication. Small group research conducted by C. Arthur Van Leer and Edward A. Mabry in 1999 tested contrasting interaction models for discriminating between consensual and dissentient decision-making groups. The hypothesis was that groups that reach consensus follow a four-phase pattern of orientation, conflict, emergence, and reinforcement, whereas groups that fail to reach consensus follow different developmental sequences. Their method consisted of extensive investigation of social influence processes and relevant collateral variable characteristics of jury group decision-making. Their subjects were university students who volunteered as participants. There were 15 groups involved with 132 subjects. Groups were heterogeneous by gender and ethnicity, and the average age of the participants was slightly under 23 years old. The groups were videotaped during deliberations in a jury process to either convict a defendant or acquit them. 8 juries unanimously voted to convict, while 7 were deadlocked. Data results. The data failed to support the hypothesis. Fisher's 4 phases of development failed to discriminate between consensus and hung juries. There was evidence of phasic progression in the data. However, the nature of these phases did not discriminate between consensus or hung juries. Hypothesis failed to confirm that the groups that reached a consensus follow Fisher's 4-phase pattern.
For our first case study, we will examine the Robbers Cave experiment. This study was set up as a camping trip that involved 22 boys all aged 12 and with similar cultural backgrounds. They were divided into 2 randomly assigned groups and were initially kept separated so that they were unaware of the other's existence. The boys were made to bond with their group over a few days in order to develop a social identity within the group. They were then introduced as rivals and made to compete against each other in activities where there were prizes for the winners and nothing for the losers. Eventually, prejudice between the 2 groups developed. It started as verbal taunts or name-calling at each other. The study took a shocking turn when the boys became more aggressive. Experimenters had to step in and stop near-physical encounters, and one group went so far as to burn the other team's flag, which caused that group to retaliate by ransacking their cabin as revenge. Finally, the boys were kept separated again, and were asked to make a list of features to describe both groups as truthfully as they can. The results were consistent with every boy. They would write very favorable traits about their in-group, while the out-group received negative or unfavorable attributes. Ironically, the positive and negative characteristics used by the boys were the same on each list, regardless of which group they were from. This case study is an obvious depiction of social identity theory, where the boys ended up writing favorably about their in-group and unfavorably about the out-group. Tajfel and Turner proposed 3 mental processes in social identity theory. Firstly, categorization, where an in-group's behavior is defined through social categories. When the boys met for the first time, they discovered similar hobbies with each other, which formed the category for their group. The second process is social identification, where individuals adopt the identity of the group after it has been categorized. Once the group has formed its category, boys would adopt those hobbies, even if they had never done it before, so that they could identify themselves with other members of the group. The last process is social comparison, which involves in-groups comparing themselves favorably against other groups to maintain self-esteem. In the study, it was found that while there were prizes for the winners, the boys were more focused on winning for their group's pride or identity rather than the actual prize.
A group was set out on a task to create a 2-day film screening. As the topic of the screening is a flexible one, everyone was excited to convey their ideas, thus creating a vibrant and exciting brainstorming process. However, in reference to Edward's de Bono's 6 thinking hats, each of the team members bear their own perspective regarding the project. They did not, however, voice out their concerns in the fear of being shunned by the rest of the team. Conflict first arose when they had to finalize a topic. Each member had a topic that they are passionate about, thus it was hard to come to a decision. Members then defended their own arguments. Going back to the 6 thinking hat, each member also analyzed each topic ideas through their own prioritized perspective. For example, one member was more concerned about the creativity side of the topic, whereas another was concerned about the problems that might arise from the topic. However, each perspective would greatly contribute to the whole process. Due to the continuous debate that was going on about the focus topic, no agreement was reached, despite only 2 weeks until the proposal was due. One member decided to step up and narrow down the argument into 3 different main ideas, and a preview about the proposal that the rest of the team could vote for. It was also made clear that the voting result is absolute. The spring theme came out as the winner of the voting result. The group then sat together, now led by the leader, and focused their analysis on the theme. The 6 thinking hats were once again employed for the process in order to create a foolproof proposal for the screening. The members who disagreed with the theme also tried to find aspects of the screening that they could immerse themselves in.
In conclusion, Fisher's model assists organizations in keeping track of progress and is relatively applicable to real life. However, problem solving in small groups is more complicated and it fails to bring up real problems such as confrontations. To finish, communication is essential in effective functioning of an organization.